All right, show of hands. Who's excited to see this thing full? Today's the day. Well, today's the day we hopefully start pumping water. I'm gonna be dropping in the solar powered well pump from RPS solar pumps into that 5-inch well and powering it with these solar panels. So if you're new here, here's a quick recap and we're gonna get busy. So here's our pond. This is a fully excavated pond, meaning there's no dam to it, just a big cereal bowl in the ground. But we dug this in the summer of 2019, and I have an extensive playlist if you wanna watch that build. It's pretty fun. Fast forward almost 5 years now, and it's never been full. So I'm tired of that, we're ready for a solution. Here's said solution. A solar powered well pump from RPS solar pumps. There's the solar ground mount, which I put up in a previous video. There's the 5-inch well we drilled earlier this summer. 186 feet deep, producing about 40 gallons a minute. Should be plenty to fill this pond. And I've got all the necessary equipment out here, truck full of materials, old backhoe. So having never done this before, you're likely going to see me reference this guy here quite a bit. User manual. It's got some nice pictures to it. It's color. Better than IKEA. But for now to start, we're going to just take care of some of the small stuff. So here's the controller we're going to mount on the post here. We'll do that in just a moment. This is supposed to be a very DIY user-friendly system. So I'm not going to go through and make a how-to video. My video is more or less going to be my experience, and does it live up to the reputation. Here's our poly pipe, 200 foot of 1 1/4 inch SDR11, as they call it. This is actually the same stuff I used for my sewer when we ran it 850 feet, so I'm well versed in this stuff. I'm gonna lay it out in the sun, let it warm up, makes life a whole lot easier. All right, first things first, we're gonna get this controller mounted. This controller is actually really nice. It's a metal case and should mount up pretty easy. This thing comes pre-programmed from RPS, so there's really nothing to do now as far as when you hook it up to get it going, but they do have a little keypad you can plug in here and make changes if you ever need to. But heavy duty metal case on this thing, cooling fins on the back here. And then the way this thing mounts is you just take these side set screws off here, you mount this plate, and then you put the set screws back on, so it'll mount just like this. We're going to stick it on this pole right here. I couldn't find any bigger washers, so I had to settle for those little guys. So let's throw it on real quick. So this is facing due north, so I just want to put the controller on this side, keep it out of the sun as much as possible. So the power wire will come from the panels into like a DC disconnect and then in here, and then this will power the well pump. There'll be a wire coming from here over to the well and down the well, and they don't call for conduit between the two. Kind of up to the user. I'll probably slide some in at some point just to keep the wire from getting damaged out here from weed eating or... All right, let's drive a ground rod. Got an 8 foot 5/8. It's a big one. But I'm gonna use that monster there, as Tim the Toolman Taylor would say, more power. Oh. And we're gonna use one of these grounding rod drivers on it. Should be pretty awesome. My buddy Chris wasn't kidding. That thing's incredible. What a setup. I probably will leave it stubbed out about that height though. So if you see here, the well casing is about 60 inches above grade. And over there, I'm gonna berm it up, build a rock ledge or waterfall and kind of trickle down in. So it's likely that some of the grade will come up this area here as well. So I don't wanna stick it way too low. All right, next we're gonna clean this up, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and try to dig this out and get the pitless adapter in here. Get some of this hard stuff out of the way before we do the fun stuff. I say hard, none of this is really that hard. It's just figuring out what you're doing and, oh, more power. I've been watching old reruns of Home Improvement. My Tim the Toolman keeps coming out. Let's hope this old girl starts. And you know what? This one still requires the keys as well. I thought that was just my tractor, but this thing, even though it's old, still takes keys. Some of you might be saying, Adam, get on with actually installing the pump and stop, you know, screwing around with other stuff. Spotter. Can't tell if the back of the bucket's gonna protrude out right. The goal here is to dig a trench and not smash my well casing. That old girl's more of a machete than a scalpel. She does a pretty good job. So I need a depth of about 4 feet, and I need to have that pipe exposed so I can drill into it. The run going that way does not need to be very deep at all, and long term, like in the winter when it freezes, that will have no water in it anyway. I'm going to do a weep hole on the inside. I'm going to hand dig a little of this off camera, clean this up, and then we will be hopefully ready to set this pitless adapter. So I did a little more off camera than I said I was going to. I had the backhoe, I got excited. Another thing, hand digging through clay is not fun. It's a little difficult. I'm very envious of Adam from Hometown Acres because, well, he never has to deal with this stuff. Lucky guy. And nobody can say the well driller didn't do a good job grouting the casing. Let me show you. So you can see all this around the outside of it, kind of like gooey stuff. That's the grout they put in there on the casing to seal things up. So I have the depth I need. Again, if you don't live in a climate that freezes, you don't have to do this, so lucky you. I'm also a little sad you guys can't smell how it smells out here right now. That old girl, all this fresh dirt, should be a cologne. All right, so now I'm gonna clean up that side of the casing there a little bit and get my hole saw, and let me show you guys how this is all gonna work and how I'm actually gonna get the pitless adapter down in there. Here's the pitless adapter. Take it apart for you guys. These 3 pieces there live on the outside. That will be the pipe going down to the pump. I built this 6-foot long handle with a T on it so it can't go down the well. So if I do drop it all the way down, it's just going to stop. But this end here is 1 1/4 inch, which fits in the top of this piece here. We'll thread this guy on here, a few threads, nothing too crazy. And now when we go to lower it down in, we have a handle and lower it down in, stick it through the hole, and then we can put our nuts on. And once it's fixed down there, we can then just pull this pipe up, and this piece in my right hand will be down there in the well casing, and this will be out. So this is what we can then come back and set the pump on and lower it down in. Easy in theory, probably difficult with only 1 set of hands, so we'll see how it goes. See if we can keep the plastic on this side and not let it fall down in the hole, down in the well. Not all the way open yet. I might get a screwdriver and pop it out before it falls in. You're gonna watch me get really mad when I'm the one who just pushes it in there though. Got it. And I still about threw it down there. Proof that I didn't. Got my hole. I might get a file and just deburr that a little bit. And then we'll drop the pitless adapter in. Probably the most nerve-wracking part, or one of the most nerve-wracking parts of all of this. Well, that makes it interesting. This thing isn't going to fit down the silly well casing. Well, it will once I don't have this piece. All right, we're going to have to rig up a different way to do it. So the whole mechanism won't fit down the well casing with the lip of this being stuck through there. Let me think for a minute. I hate that feeling when you think, uh-oh, project is at a standstill. You just got to stop and think for a minute. Use your brain. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I think this is gonna work. Took a piece of string and we're gonna tie it in a giant loop so it's fed down the well and sticks out the hole here. And then we are going to feed the pieces we need also through it. How we do a controlled lower on this is interesting though. But in theory, we should be able to slide this down the hole, fix in a position. Just gotta figure out how to orient it. Here goes nothing. Man, that makes me nervous. Whew. All right, I went ahead and just got that thing on there off camera. So now when it comes time to actually set the pump or pull the pump or whatever you got to do, you use this little pipe here, pull this guy up. We'll have the nipple on here, the barb, and the pipe down. So when I go to put it in here for good, we put it down here and then just back the threads off the top of this and leave it. It's a nice little setup. So if this is 200 feet, we're going to cut it to about 153 for our drop pipe. So I made that cut. That leaves me with a 47-foot tailpiece for this one. Great. They say that you may need to heat this pipe up to get it to slide over the barb. Man, it's pretty toasty. Oh, so close. Worth heating that up or not. Yeah, maybe I will get the heat gun real quick. All right. Whew. Well, boys and girls, she don't get much prettier than that. That thing is 100% seated. Got my hose clamps back there. We'll slide them forward, tie it down, and then I'm gonna get some 53, I think, and put some stone underneath that pipe there for the first 3 or 4 feet to prevent deflection against that piece there. Don't want that snapping the sidewall of that pipe there. I tell you, I always love a good project that requires all the things to be out here. All right, got my hose clamps all snugged up, 3 of them. Tried to space them so that the flat parts, each one, are kind of around. Hard to do when you have ground underneath, but close enough. By the way, I've ever mentioned, do you guys know what RPS stands for? I know, I don't think I've mentioned it. It'll make sense when I say it. Rural Power Systems. All right, got enough in here just so that if that moves a little bit or tries to move, it can't and won't overly flex on the pitless adapter into the casing. All that dirt in my shoes feels awesome. So we get this side pinned down here. Just kind of cleaning up, doing a couple things. I went ahead and ran my ground wire. I just got my little lug here. It's not a huge gauge wire, but I happen to have this piece of conduit laying around. A little 45. I'm just going to put some duct seal in there, and I'll replace this nice electrical tape rig here tomorrow with a couple hose clamps that I got up at the house. I went ahead and mounted the DC disconnect, which is your main power off from the panels to the controller, and I just kind of offset it this way because you have wire leads coming in, coming out, and then they go up here into the controller. We're not getting a ton of sun on the panels just yet, but I'm going to go ahead and throw a tarp on this. We're going to wire these up in series real quick, get the power at least to the disconnect, not the controller, and then we'll move forward. Today's episode of Adam Goes to the Hospital. Hopefully this is big enough. Got myself a good old-fashioned Harbor Freight tarp here, drop cloth. Man, these things are dirty. These are going to be wired in series, so one just goes to the next, and so on, just positive, negative, positive, negative. So we'll start on this side, end there, and then my 2 leads from my controller will land on the positive and negative of these. As simple as it may seem, these quick little connectors, got a positive here, negative here, positive to negative, positive to negative. Literally just snap them all the way through. So this is my remaining positive on the front end, and there's my negative on the back end. Line from the controller, or from the DC disconnect, will come to this one and to that one. They give you 20 feet of solar wire, and I have to go like 4.5. All right, I'm gonna put this wire up and then we'll jump back on. So we are wired up as much as I want to be right now. So the wire comes down into the top of the disconnect. Currently have it set to off. And then when it comes time to hook up power to the controller, you have these little jumper wires that just go from the bottom here into the 2 ports on this side. Oh, you caught me. I was reading in a book. I like to break a mental sweat too. White Goodman, anyone? Dodgeball? Globo Gym? I'm going to set aside some stuff though that I'm not going to need today. For example, the plug-in keypad that goes to the controller, a splice kit for the sensor, and then a float switch or sensor itself. So if you're filling the tank, you can put it in the tank and it'll shut the pump off when full. I'm filling a very large tank, but we're probably about 50 or 60 days from full, so we'll save this for another day. So this is the pump end and this is the pump. I'm going to get to that in just a second. And in this box, all of our wire for the pump, check valve, a Harbor Freight tape measure, sure, the well cap, Teflon tape, the barbs, etc., the drop rope. This is part of the turnkey kit, so when you buy the turnkey kit, they give you everything you need. The rope, check valve, the wire, nice thing to have. Well, yeah, it's a nice thing to have because you need it, but it's nice that you can just buy it one-stop shop kind of thing. All right, let's get this out of the way. Yeah, we're jumping all out of sorts here. I'm definitely not following this in order. And so the pump end, this guy here, ours is 3/4 horse pump, and we're rated at 18 gallons a minute at 138 feet ahead. Static water levels at 45 feet. Not gonna be fighting near that much head, so hopefully we'll get a little more than 18 gallons a minute. But this lives on top of this beauty here. Oh, she's heavy. So this is the actual pump. So we're gonna start fitting this together. Then we'll have to ultimately splice these wires onto that giant roll of wire. What is with that bird? We'll do the wire here in a few moments, but first let's do the fittings that go on top of here, that check valve and everything I showed you. Check valve is going to live at the very bottom. This is how the assembly will go together. It's got this nipple and then a bushing adapter. It goes into the check valve, make sure the flow is going up, another bushing, and then this is the nipple that will ultimately connect to the pipe going up out of the pump. Quick change of plans and change of workbench because I got more tools over here. I'm going to go ahead and put the poly pipe on here in the rope. If you remember, I got to put these hose clamps on the poly pipe, and I like to just get all the stuff that might jostle the wire out of the way. And well, actually the instructions say to do this first too. So now you guys understand why I wanted to do this first. So close. Fully seated, man. I'll take that. Uh-oh, it's gonna smoke you guys. This has been one of those projects where you do it the first time and it takes what seems like forever. But if you were to do it again, it'd be much, much quicker. The pipe's still pretty warm. This hose clamp on here, like, you can feel it really biting hard on the plastic. I want these snug, but I don't want to strip out the gear. I'm gonna go ahead and attach my safety rope. It's got two eyelets. I'm gonna use the side opposite the wire. And then I recommend putting a bunch of electrical tape around the ends of these hose clamps to keep them laying flat so that when the wire is passing up through here, it doesn't chafe. So we're gonna put about 3 rolls of tape on that. And I need to call Kyle, ask him about that hitch knot he's using. All right, so I have my rope tied off here. And if electrical tape ruins this kind of rope, don't let me know in the comments. Don't make me sweat it like that. The last thing to do though is take my 4 wires here and strip off of that wire there and literally butt connect and heat shrink tube these down. They give you a couple little kits here. I did buy a bunch of extra heat shrink tubing on Amazon. Obviously they're waterproof out of the gate, but I just like an extra layer of security. I mean, that entire thing has an extra jacket on it. Why shouldn't this? Especially when it's me living near these hose clamps. Just wanted to show you guys where I'm at least show you I'm actually doing this. So yeah, butt connectors. The belt and suspenders part of me really wanted to solder these, but if this is how they say to do it, I'm going to do it this way. I got my heat shrink tubing on here. I'll slide these over, heat those up. I've got a long run on here just to protect these wires. I got one sleeved here as well. You can see if you can. So when this is done, it'll be a nice long continuous looking feed. I think this turned out pretty nice. Much preferred this look and not seeing all the color of the exposed wires. Looks much cleaner that way and gives it more protection. Got to wire up the plugs. So there's one plug. This is actually for AC in or generator in. And here's the plug that will be at the other end of the line there. So we'll wire that up. This just comes off with a couple set screws and we'll have a plug ready to put into the controller and test this thing out. All right, moment of truth is fast approaching. Is anyone else as nervous as me? Gonna go hook up our jumper wires from the DC connect to the controller. Easy. Of course, now that I'm getting ready to do this, it's been like partly cloudy, so. All right, she's powering up. It says it's running. Oh yeah, we're moving water. Still getting some air out of the lines. All right, we're gonna test this thing here for a little bit. And we got some good flow. Make my pond look all yucky. So I got good flow in. We're gonna see how long it takes for the well pump to outpace and drain that 55 gallons. All right, just killed that pump. This thing's dropping rather quickly. Really excited to have everything working together now and pumping as it should. I got smarter after I turned the camera off last night and put this thing in recirculation mode. So I got the pump just dumping back into itself there. You can see you got pretty good flow this morning. Happy with that. I'd left the system on, so this morning when the sun came up, kicked on, ready to go. So now I'm going to lay everything out, set my pump on this trash bag over here, and run everything going that way so that I'm not trying to fight standing over that hole. And tape the wire, the rope, and the pipe together about every 10 feet. It is notable that that poly pipe can stretch about an inch per 10 or 12 feet, so roughly over a 100-foot span, you can have a 1-foot drop in that pipe. So you need to make sure you leave your rope and your wire with some slack. I almost forgot, I need to plumb this end up before I send it all the way down to the other end, waiting. So this end is going to be what connects to the pitless adapter, or the other side of the pitless adapter. So this barb will go in there, get 3 hose clamps. These threads here will get Teflon taped and tightened down into this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, get that in there. I just need the heat gun, which is why I want to do it over here by this generator. But I'll get that all in there, and then this will be what lowers down and locks in to what's inside of the casing there, the other side of the pitless adapter. I also mentioned a weep hole. I'm going to be drilling a 3/32 inch hole about a foot down from the bottom of this pitless adapter. So the idea there is that any water that is in here will run back to the casing and will drain down to the depth of the weep hole. I realize, like I said before, that the pitless adapter and the weep hole are kind of a belt and suspenders approach, a little bit of overkill, but have you guys met me? Plus, like I said, I just like the seamless look of the pitless coming through here. Got that Teflon taped and fitted on there. Pipe wrench and big crescent wrench did the job. I'm telling you guys right now, if you ever do this pipe with those barbs, a heat gun makes all the difference in the world. If you don't have a way to heat this up and get that to go over there, you're not going to get it to sit all the way down like that. So let's put a little tape on these guys, drill that hole, and we'll have to tape everything up like I talked about. All right, I think we're ready to rock. Everything looks good. Got taped about every 10 feet or so. Plenty of slack in the wire and the rope. And I laid out my 300-foot tape just to make sure I was close to 10 foot on each one of those tape ups. And somehow I did not even tape my tape measure to the pipe. Good for me. We're gonna have a lot of extra wire and rope. I'm gonna let that drag. And I'm gonna leave this side of the pitless adapter, it's bagged up, kind of taped over right now. I'm hopeful that when I get things up there and it's within 5-10 feet, I can then throw that T on there and not to drag that whole thing throughout here. So all right, fingers crossed that this goes smoothly. There's a lot of weight between this pipe and wire. So I'm most concerned about when I get close and trying to get this T on here and having too much weight trying to pull it down the hole. I guess worst case is it drops all the way to the bottom. That wire, and most importantly that rope, is like 200 plus feet. So there'll be rope hanging out of the top of this no matter what if I did drop it. Tell you what, there's some serious weight on this thing. Well, there we go. Use my leg as a guide. Just kind of letting the pipe ride on the side of the casing and making sure the wire and the rope aren't smashed between the casing. Wow, it's too early for a beer. All right, here we go. Fortunate, I can't see a thing in here as far as where that pitless is. I'm sitting on it. Oh, missed it. Oh, I'm in. Yes. I know how that probably sounded on camera. The only better feeling than that is when I turn this on and water comes out that end there. And I think until that happens, this guy's staying right here. Guys, if this pumps water, man, I'm gonna be excited. I mean, there's no reason it shouldn't, right? We know the well produces water. We know the pump pumps water. But did I screw up anything in the process of getting that down there? All right, moment of truth. Do I rejoice? Or do I cry? Plenty of sunshine too. Perfectly blue sky. All I can see is the sun and the moon. All right, it's beeping. Doing its thing. Oh yeah, we got water. You can see the pipe moving. Oh baby. It helps if Genius would take the plug out of the end here too. Pipe's still probably filling, getting air out of it. Yeah, we aren't even full yet. Love it when a plan comes together. Let that thing fill up for a second. I don't know if you guys noticed, if you go back to when I started shooting these videos, when I announced the project probably late June, maybe early July, the water level was up to here. We have fallen off significantly. We've lost a lot of water in the last, call it 40 days. We're gonna put it back, albeit some really cold water. Ooh, that stuff's cold. Pretty clear though too. So I got things mostly buttoned up out here. Still have a handful of things to do. We'll walk down and check the flow rate here in a second. Got my well cap on here. Sometime this week, I'm going to trench some conduit here and up, just make that a cleaner install, shorten my rope, shorten my wire, button up all the wiring underneath here, but it's functional. It's what I need, and this video is probably getting pretty long at this point, so I'm going to cut it off here. And I haven't been scientific yet about trying to figure out what our flow rate is. Pretty good stream coming out of there right now. A lot of factors at play here though. How much sun am I actually grabbing? The angle that's on there is kind of a year-round average. I could be lower since we're here in the summer. And secondly, that pump I think was rated for 138 foot of head. My static level is only 45 feet. My total dynamic head is probably a lot higher because I did place it at about 160 in total. And so at some point I'll hook the generator up to this and then measure the flow rate. That way I know I have 100% power, and we'll see what we're getting. And if we're not getting the 18 a minute or so, it's likely because of where I place this. Even if this isn't the full 18 gallons a minute, that's a heck of a whole lot more water going in here than we had previously going in here. There's nothing that really feeds this pond. Can't wait to see what this, coupled with a few big rains, will do to this thing. Right now we need over 2 feet. So if you're new here, I hope you'll come back and see me sometime. Many more projects on the way involving this pond and talking about this pump system. But right now, guys, it's 96 degrees. I'm insanely hot, and the family's over there on the dock. So I'm gonna go join them. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.